I'm super excited because today we get an opportunity just to have a conversation around fatherhood, and I'm not a dad yet. At some point, I would love to be.
I'm glad to hear that. I would have been like, why am I just, I'm a grandpa and I didn't even know it. So.
But I want to encourage everyone here, this may be a conversation about dads, about fatherhood, but it's not just a conversation for dads. This is really a conversation that I believe will benefit everyone, and so I'm super excited about it.
I'm pumped too. It is a conversation that is needed in our culture today, and it is missing from our culture today.
Yeah. I know, it's kind of crazy, the culture shift that's taken place probably over the last couple decades, but I mean, I've really noticed it in the last probably 5 to 10 years, where culture has really, in a lot of ways, demonized dads and demonized the father figure in households. And so part of the conversation today, I'd love to talk about what does that look like? What does it look like to have a spiritual father, to be a spiritual leader in the house and for other people. So I thought we'd come out of the gate kicking. Let's talk about toxic masculinity.
Let's talk about toxic. We're going there today, people. Yeah. So, like, I don't know. It's like you can't cancel us. We've already been canceled. So, but we're going to talk there. You see, there was so much of an emphasis on the empowerment of women. Coming out of the Me Too movement. And there was a lot of health that came out of that. And we love women. Yeah. There's one woman I really, really love. Well, you too, Mom. But I was talking about Lindsay there, so it's a different kind of love. And it's good, and it was needed. Frankly, as a church, we've championed the cause of women for like decades. But what can happen is you can actually swing the pendulum too far. It can happen in anything in life. And so the pendulum can swing so far where it goes, where we're no longer just empowering women, we're disempowering men. Right. And it's like the worst thing that you could be is a man. And this might come across shocking to some people there. But there are differences between men and women.
Really, there are.
I know our culture doesn't want to think so, but there are differences between men and women. Like, you think about not just the physical differences, but there are some innate differences. Now, we generalize, and does it mean 100% of men are this way or 100% of women? Not necessarily, but there are things that are consistent. And there are things that as a male you're born with, this desire to protect those you love, to provide for those that you care about. And yet this culture is saying, like, men, you're not needed. Not only are you not, like, you're the worst thing, you're an animal, but you're not needed. And then what happens is, because men may not want to announce this, but men want to be needed.
Yeah, that's so true.
It's not just that princess that wants the prince in shining armor, but guys want it because when you're needed, it shows that there's a purpose. Right. And so it's like, men tell men that they're not needed, and now how many fatherless homes do we have?
Yeah. In preparing for this conversation and thinking about just how important it is to have a father figure, I thought, well, let's look at kind of some of the statistics around homes that don't have a father. And I was absolutely blown away by some of these. 85% of the youths in prison come from a fatherless home. 71% of all high school dropouts come from a fatherless home. 90%, 9 out of every 10 homeless or runaway children come from a fatherless home. Nearly 33% of all children, about a third of all children, live without a father. And then this one is really scary. About 60% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes.
It's just, it is sad when you see those statistics. And as a church, we're championing the cause of fathers. Yeah. We're not taking anything away from women and mothers, but we need healthy fathers.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean the cure for toxic masculinity, there's all this toxic masculinity. The cure isn't the removal of masculinity.
Yeah.
I mean, you see guys saying that they're becoming women and they're celebrated, and you have guys that are strong men providing for their families and they're put down. Mm-hmm. Like, it's okay to be a man. It's okay, like, the whole concept of being a manly man, like, I don't, like, it's not just that, like, you go hunting.
If that was true, you would not be a manly man.
I would not be a manly man. It's not true that, like, you're really good at fishing. I've only been a handful of times.
And you had a guide that caught all the fish for you.
Yeah, exactly, right? It doesn't mean that you ride a motorcycle. I've only rode a motorcycle once.
And you did what?
I dropped it. So, somehow I landed on my feet. I was in a parking lot, and I just, never rode a motorcycle again. But the cure isn't the removal of masculinity. The cure isn't for us to become like a woman. Mm-hmm. The cure is to be healthy men, to be healthy fathers.
Yeah, that's so good. So, what are some of the ways that we can actually kind of move away from this idea of toxic masculinity and embrace a healthy form of masculinity?
Yeah, I think that, like, when you look at it, it needs to be modeled. People need to know, like, how do you become a healthy father? Mm-hmm. And there's so many great scriptures. There's so many great passages in the Bible that articulate that. But also, people need to see it modeled. So even in churches, sometimes churches are like, well, we're not going to celebrate Father's Day because so many of the kids don't have dads. And it's like, that's heartbreaking, but we also need to give these young kids a vision. Yeah. If they're a young boy, what does it look like? I didn't have a dad, but no, I'm not talking about myself, but for that little kid, like this is what I want to become. Because I didn't have it modeled, I need someone to model it for me. Or for these girls to realize if they're growing up without a dad, that, you know what, it is possible to actually have that, and it's not going to be taking place everywhere. Some of us in this room, unfortunately, don't have that situation, but it still doesn't mean that's not something that we shouldn't model and strive for. Joshua 24:15 says, if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. It goes on to say, but as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord.
I love that. And something I think is so funny about that is you see a lot of it's such a cliche mom thing, the Bible verse in the house. Why can't we make that a father thing too? Why can't we I'm not a dad, but as dads, as men, why can't we be just as into those verses and declaring those sorts of things over our houses?
It doesn't need to just be a mom thing. Yeah. On the ride to school, every day, I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, on the ride to school, every day, you know what we did.
Put on the armor of God every morning.
From when you were in kindergarten, we did it before then, but it was like whether you wanted to do it or not. Mm-hmm. Got little Eyan in the back seat. That was back when you thought it was dangerous to ride in the front seat. Yeah. You had to be like, so it was like got to be in the back seat. And little Eyan putting on the shoes apiece. Yeah.
And not so little Eyan, even in high school, you would drop me off at school. Still putting on the armor of God.
The armor of God. He knew there was no choice. Like, I'll pull over. You'll be late for school because, you know what? I'd rather you get a bad grade in school and understand the ways of God than, just like those sort of things. And around churches, a lot of Father's Day is known as being one of, if not the least attended. I gotta say, let's start a revival here and let's let Father's Day be the highest attended. Let's be a place where it's like dads know that they're built up, they're strengthened. And I want to just, every dad who's here in the room, rather than just laying in bed, eating a donut, waiting for the barbecue this afternoon, like, you made a great choice. I think really as dads, it's okay to be the spiritual leader of the household, and for us to be guides, not professors.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
I know sometimes, like, we're not going to have all the answers. Yeah. I'm a pastor, but there's times when, like, you'll ask me questions, I'll be like, I don't know, let's go find out. And sometimes I think because guys want to have the answer, that will avoid certain conversations because we don't want to look dumb. You don't look dumb. We're not here to have all the answers. We're here to guide our children into the ways of God. And really, that can't happen if it's not modeled, like living it.
Right.
Because, you know, like, it doesn't matter, like, people will say, it's not what you do, it's what you say. Wait, no, it's what you do. Like, modeling it. Yeah. Like, we need to live it, because no matter how often we're pulling over, like, armor of God, if what you see is not someone living it, and it's not perfect, right? Like, I make a lot of mistakes, but you know that my desire is to keep following God.
Yeah, and I think along those lines, in order to efficiently and effectively guide, you have to be following as well. I think sometimes we forget that in order to lead spiritually, we need to be led spiritually. So even me thinking as a future father, what am I doing now? What is my relationship like with Father God? Am I being led by Him spiritually? Am I fostering that relationship, knowing that that will then allow me to guide my family and my future kids as well?
That's so good. That's so good. And there's always those opportunities to teach and to train. Like when you were little, you wanted to wrestle. And there's all this talk now, no, don't teach boys violence. It's like, he's got energy to get out. So it's like you got little 2, 3, 4-year-old Eyan. We had one room, I didn't even want any furniture in the room. It was, do you remember that?
I don't think we called it this, but it was pretty much a fight room.
It was what happens in Fight Club stays in Fight Club, you know? This is like, it was just like, it was the wrestle, it was all about wrestling.
I remember I was probably in second grade. I think I was dealing with this bully. I still remember his name. His name was Matthew.
Oh, Matthew. You know those Matthews.
Matthew. Yeah. It's a biblical name, but they're not always very Christian-like. Now, I remember I came home one time, and I don't know why I just assumed you knew how to fight. I don't know.
You should clearly know.
I think every kid kind of looks up to their dad and just assumes they can do anything.
You don't realize I got like offered the job to lead in Gladiator. I've turned down all these like.
But I remember I came home, and I went to you and I was like, Dad, I need to learn how to fight. I want to learn how do I punch, how do I grip, all of that. And without skipping a beat, he's like, okay, yeah, let's do it. So he gets on his knees and he puts his hands up and he's like, okay, right fist, punch, left fist. And he's doing all these different moves, teaching me how to fight. And I still remember that. That's second grade. Have I ever used it? No, I've never gotten in a fight. But I know how if I need to.
And what did I do? We'll see. We haven't talked about this. So we'll see what he says. What did I tell you about fighting?
You actually told me not to never get in a fight, but never to initiate it.
Never initiate a fight.
Yeah.
But protect yourself. If it comes down to it, never initiate a fight. Mm-hmm. And that's healthy. That's not toxic masculinity. Yeah. You see, you model it, so we need to teach it. And the only way that we can teach it to our kids is if we're following. We can't help and teach someone else to follow Jesus if we're not. So we need to teach it. We need to encourage it. Yeah. Let's say, like, men, let's not just let the women be the cheerleaders of our kids. Like, let's be their greatest encouragers. And often when they need the most encouragement is in the most difficult times. Yeah. Like when you're just feeling like you blew it. You blew it. You don't know. Right now, these things are not in notes. He doesn't even know what I'm going to say right now. When Eyan was 16 years old.
Oh, gosh.
Now you know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
One of his favorite movies, what are those? They're called Fast and the Furious?
Yeah, Fast and Furious.
And he was convinced that, like, it's not the movie stunts. Like, you could really do that. And so...
I shouldn't have gotten a Ford Mustang at 16 years old.
And you know I didn't want you to.
I know.
Did everything to stop that. And he's drifting. Do you guys know what drifting is? So apparently drifting doesn't work too well when you drift into a curb and your tires, it
the
looked
front
like a
wheel
spaceship.
ripped off the axle. It was expensive to fix it. But everyone was fine.
No one
was hurt.
No one was injured. Mm-hmm. And so that night, we're in the garage. Not in your car.
No, in
my car.
My car had to be towed off.
Right? And you were like, I'm the dumbest person, the stupidest, this is going to wreck my... Because, at that age, you feel like you're just, what you've done, life is absolutely over. So it's not just encouraging little kids, but it's those times where it was like, I was a really dumb thing, but you're not dumb. And the fact that nobody got injured, it's just a car, you're going to have to get rides for a long time now. This is not going to, there's going to kind of thing.
Back to the armor of God every morning.
Right? Had you not had on the armor of God? Good thing you took up the shield of faith. But it's like, you're great, you're smart. We do dumb things, and how gracious of God that nobody got injured and this and that. So it's in those moments where you literally can feel like a 16-year-old, you feel like your life is over. We need to be dads that encourage. But on the other side of that, we need to be dads that discipline. And we're raising an undisciplined generation without restraints, who think that they can just do anything and there's no consequences. But the fact is, there are consequences in life. And it's not about, you see, there is unhealthy discipline. It should never be abuse. But there is healthy discipline. Were you ever... When you were a young kid, now you might not be, but when you were young, were you ever afraid of me?
Absolutely. I mean, now I'm like twice your size, so no, but for the first couple years of life when I was still smaller than you.
I know. I'm modeling how I must decrease so you can increase, right? But you were afraid. Were you afraid that I was actually going to, oh no, my dad's going to kill me, or oh no, my dad's going to...
No, absolutely not. I think it was more a fear. I think there's a healthy fear, just as we would fear our Heavenly Father, right? It talks a lot in the Bible about fearing God. I think there is a certain degree of healthy fear for your earthly father. And it's not... I'm so concerned that I'm going to disappoint you or anything like that. At the end of the day, I know that you want what's best for me. And so when I don't live up to that, there is this fear around it. And it's kind of hard to articulate, but I think there is a certain degree of fear that helped keep me in check, that helped keep me from making wrong decisions until I can learn for myself what is best for me.
That's so good. Our brains, they'll tell you, keep developing up into a certain age. And so it's like if kids don't have that healthy fear of, especially it's like, okay, my mom, I grew up in the generation where you were spanked, right? My mom, she would spank me and I would laugh. So she'd go get the spoon. You all know what the spoon is? I'm talking about the spoon with holes, not the spoon the one, she'd do that and I would laugh. She'd get the belt, turn the belt around, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, Mom, you might end up in jail. I'd still be laughing, there was no fear on that side. And it doesn't mean it's wrong, we're talking here about how to raise healthy kids. Discipline should be done in a healthy way. Now, here's the thing. When you're looking at how to teach, how to encourage, how to discipline, we need to understand our kids' personalities and ours and adjust what we do based upon their personalities.
Yeah, that's so important. I saw actually a funny video on Instagram talking about the difference between kids today and kids back in the day. Even I mean, I'm not that old, but even when I grew up, it's way different to where the punishment now for kids is no phones, go outside and play. And when I was a kid, it's you can't go outside anymore.
Yeah, right? No going outside. You're like, ah! You're like, you got to know their personalities. You got to know what they like. See, some kids, you might have a kid who it's just like, just by looking at them, oh, it's big. And then you might have other kids, like when I was a kid, like it had to be loud and in your face in order for it to make a difference. So it's not just, this is my personality as a dad. I'm looking at, no, because I love my kid, I need to adjust how I'm teaching. I need to adjust how I'm encouraging. I need to adjust how I'm disciplining based upon their personality. Ephesians 6:4 says, "Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and the instruction of the Lord." Do you remember being young and we would go, especially for the couple years that you were homeschooled, a lot more, but all the time, you would want to go, after work, you'd say, can we go practice baseball? I want to practice. And we would just be, till it's finally like, we got to go home, kid. There's no more light, this little light here, like we got to go home. But not just the training in baseball, how are we training our kids to follow Jesus? Yeah. And that requires like a rhythm. It requires things done on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and on a yearly basis. Now, depending on their age and at their stage in life, it's important, by the way, I think, to do things as a family, but it's also important to do things individually with your kids. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's great to have family time. That's what this is right here as a church. This is family time. And your Heavenly Father wants you to be a part of the family, but your Heavenly Father also wants to spend one-on-one alone time with you. So it's like with the kids, as a dad, the thing I would always think about is every day, how am I going to connect with each kid? It might be 5 minutes one-on-one time. It might be just, it might be an hour. As they get older, you start to adjust because you're like ready to go to bed. You remember, like, it'd be like 11 o'clock midnight, and you'd be like, hey, Dad, can we talk? It'd be like till 2, 3 in the morning. You adjust. It'd be like, well, I want to go to bed, but you know what? This opportunity on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, how can you can do something. Whether you go to Starbucks, whether you go and just do something once a week where you set a little bit additional time. And I want to encourage dads once a year to spend time one-on-one with your kid where you can even get away, even if it's just getting away for the day. Yeah. We would do overnight things once a year. Do you remember? You wanted to learn to snowboard. Yeah. So I grew up skiing. But he wants to snowboard. So before I take him snowboarding, I'm going to learn how to snowboard. And I hated learning to snowboard because you either fall flat on your face or straight back, and you learn to. So we're driving. Do you remember this?
Yes.
We're driving up. You're probably 7 years old. Yeah, 7. And we're driving to Mammoth because I'm like, we're going to do something. I had some hotel points. We're staying at this. I think it was the Westin. Up in Mammoth. We're driving. I'm like, this is going to be a great time. It's like 5-hour drive, time with 7-year-old Eyan. And so there's not a lot of restrooms on that drive up to Mammoth. And like a 7-year-old boy just loves to pee in the middle of nowhere, So he was like drinking on those trips, like he got things he didn't get. So he was drinking a lot of Coke and, he's just like, yeah. So he's all wired on, caffeine and just having to pee all the time and just not, at that age, it's just like, he wants to get out, just jump out of the car. I'm like, we're not going to wait till we get to a gas station. I just pull over and, it's at that stage, you got pressure to get to all the way, you're peeing to Arizona, it's just like, and so he's out there and going to the bathroom. And
at that age, remember, you're not discreet about it. So my pants are around my ankles.
He's got a 7-year-old, just, you don't care.
I didn't care.
And this semi-truck is passing on the road and does the honk, It startled Eyan, and he like turned and he let out the biggest, it scared the gas out of him. He farted the loudest Like he was in competition with this semi truck.
It was pretty much just as loud.
You honked back.
Yep, I honked back.
So here's the thing. It was funny, right? The whole rest of that trip,
The rest of the 3 hours.
the whole time we were up there snowboarding, we'd be sitting on the mountain. Dad, you remember on the way up here? You know, like, and we would just laugh. And then on the whole ride home, it's now almost, I mean, we're talking almost 20 years, you know, later, and we still talk about that and laugh about it. You see, you can have with that, you make memories of the things. It's not about, there would have been things as, you know, my age, I could have been like, oh, I could have done this or I could have done that. It's like we need to invest our time. Your time with your kids is not an expenditure. It does not take you away from your hobbies. It doesn't take you away from your work. It is one of the greatest investments that you can make. Deuteronomy 6 says this in verses 6 and 7. These commandments I give you today to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Listen, when it's all said and done, like your kids years from now, I mean, they may be young now and you're thinking, yeah, straight A's, and maybe they're a straight A student, but years from now, you're not going to, you got good grades, but I don't really remember. And it
Definitely did not get straight A's.
It definitely did not, right? But impress them. The most important thing is not what they learn in school. The most important thing is what they learn spiritually at home. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home. Talk about them when you're on the car ride up to Mammoth. Talk about them on the way to school. And when you walk along the road. Sit at home, walk along the road. That's traveling. That's as we go about our business. And when you lie down and when you get up, it means all the time. All the time. It's a rhythm. I just want to encourage, like dads, like we celebrate you, we honor you. It is hard to be a dad today, but we need to model it. We need to teach, we need to encourage, and we even need to discipline on a consistent basis.
Yeah, and just one thing I want to add to that is sometimes it's hard to see the fruits of it right in the moment, but all those times, all along the road, when you lie, when you get up, having those conversations, sometimes I imagine when I was younger, it's like, is this making any difference? Is he really getting what I'm talking about? But bigger than that, it opened the door for now me to be able to come to you and have conversations because you were there along the whole way, willing and able to have those conversations. So I just want to encourage the dads. A lot of what you're doing now is setting that relationship up in the future for health.
It's so good. Even on, and don't worry, I won't talk about what we talked about.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But when we got away on a trip not too long ago, there would be quite often I would hear this. I know this really isn't a question that people ask their dad. And you're mid-20s. I know this is not even as something people ask their dad, you know, but come on, let's be those kind of dads where our kids can talk with us, even our adult kids can talk with us about anything. And you know where I stand. I don't water things down. I'm going to tell you, but you also know I love you. I'm for you. I'm your biggest cheerleader. Come on, let's raise some world shakers. Let's raise some history makers. Let's raise healthy men. Now, there's going to be many here today who are going to be like, I don't know how to do that, or even like many even adult men who will be like here, like I could use a dad, you know, like I never had that modeled. And one of the beautiful things about a church family is it's a family. In Scripture, we see that, and what we need is we need spiritual fathers. Even calling on some of those that are at a season in life that you have your own kids, but you're at a season in life, maybe even you've retired, and we need you to be spiritual fathers in this house. You were telling me about some different statistics. about what it is for someone to have a model, a mentor in their life and the difference it makes.
Yeah, when looking at statistics of youths in fatherless homes, but the only difference being they have some sort of a mentor, some sort of a father figure in their life, they're 55% more likely to go to college. They're 78% more likely to volunteer on a regular basis. 90% of them are interested in becoming some sort of a father figure, a mentor themselves. 130% more likely to hold a leadership position. 46% less likely to use drugs, and 81% more likely to participate in sports or some other activity.
So we need mentors. We need men along the way, because there's a lot of kids who don't have fathers in the home. And I see a lot of opportunity to raise up future world shakers and history makers. Oh, we might look around now and say, look how bad it is. But get ready when we raise up mighty men of God. Not toxic masculinity, healthy masculinity, becoming everything God has destined them to become. And what God has for them is greater than anything they can ask, think, or even imagine. I gotta tell you, I'm so proud of my oldest kid right here. Do you know that when he was growing up, he even had a scout working with him that he worked with you and one other kid. As a freshman, he got letters from UCLA on baseball, phenomenal athlete. And I think for a while, that was his desire. And a scout who's actually coaches with the Oakland A's asked to work with Eyan for free. You know, these things that they pay. And he was working with you and one other kid. And the kid was 1 year older than you. And he says that each of you will go first round and become millionaires. Let me work with you. That other kid actually pitched against the Dodgers a couple weeks ago and beat them on that. He signed, I don't know, $6-7 million out of. And I got to tell you, I couldn't be more proud of Eyan, because he's living God's call on his life. And I am more excited about him serving God, because that's your call.